All right, we're on air. Happy January 18th, everybody. This is a meeting to check in on active design tasks for Backdrop CMS. I think since our last design meeting, we have launched the new homepage design on backdropcms.org. I know we talked about it last week in the community outreach meeting, but I don't think it was done the week before that for design. So if you haven't seen the new homepage for backdropcms.org, go check it out. We've got almost all of the elements from our designs that we got a year ago deployed. The one piece that's missing is sort of a tab section for the main features of Backdrop. So right now we have a very long bulleted list of all of the features, and we wanted to turn that into a carousel that showed 3 items at a time where you'd only see the 3 or 4 most important items on the home page, and then you could page through. Like if you're interested in seeing all of those bullet points, you could, but we wouldn't be sort of throwing it in front of everybody all at once. Whereas right now we've kind of just got the massive list on the home page. So we have a content type and we have a view, and we're just trying to figure out how to create content for all of those items. So each bullet point should get either a screenshot or a video highlighting that feature. Last week, Tom, I think you and I talked about you were going to work on some of those videos or screenshots or whatever we need. Not all of them are going to be suitable for videos, but that would be great. And then once we get those done, we can finish up the homepage design. But I think that it looks a lot better just having some color and some change on the homepage is kind of exciting. And having it there when people are going to go to the homepage to check out the new release of Backdrop, I also think is important. Backdrop released on Monday, January 15th. And so that way we're going to get people coming to the homepage to get the new release of Backdrop, and then they're going to see the new redesign. And it's going to look like Backdrop is alive and well and thriving, and everybody's going to be happy about all of the new stuff that's going on. So hooray. Related to design, in pushing out the new theme changes to the homepage, there are likely to be some other pages around the site that are going to need a little attention. We did a little refactoring of the theme and did a release of our theme into Backdrop Contrib. So if anyone wants it, you can use it, which is great. But it's that means that I haven't looked at every page in detail to make sure that it's the same as it was before we pushed it. So if there are any issues and you find them on the site, please create an issue in the backdropcms.org queue, and we will try and get to it as soon as we can and make sure that our site stays happy and beautiful. In the list of things we need to add to the homepage, the one other thing is there's a sort of a horizontal call to action that was how to try Backdrop, where we were going to replace the single button we have now with going directly to Pantheon with a whole page of different options of how you can try Backdrop. And I have a pull request in the queue. I've been meaning to review for 2 weeks now, where Jeff had built out that page for us. So I'm going to go ahead and take a look at that, make sure it looks good with the new theme reworking, and then we'll go ahead and push that out too. And then we can put the little call to action on the homepage as well. So that way people who don't want to install it locally and don't have a Pantheon account will be able to see other ways that they can try Backdrop. In Backdrop, the product, as I mentioned, we just released Backdrop 1.9, which came out on Monday. And so right now we've pushed all of our issues to the urgent issues to the 110 milestone. Of those issues, I don't think there's anything that's specifically design focused, but if anybody is giving Backdrop 1.9 a try and they find something that could use the design update, we're always open to thinking about ways we can make the product more visually appealing, as well as ways we can make the user experience more sensible. So you can always create issues in the Backdrop issues repositories issue queue, and we'll try and address those. If you're interested in working on design related issues on the product itself, there is a tag there called audience design, which are issues where we usually need designer feedback. So if you're a designer and you want to offer your opinion or you want to submit designs, it's helpful to check the issue queue for that tag. And that, I think, is all we have in terms of what we're working on in design land right now. But I know there are a couple of other things that have been kind of on our wish list for a while. One thing in particular is getting some kind of a pop-up banner that we can take with us to events. And then we could, set it up at a training or at a camp or at a sprint or anything where Backdrop is involved. If we end up getting a booth at any kind of conference, it would be good to have something to set up at the booth. And that will, of course, need design work. So if you're passionate about doing something that's not web related and you have design skills, designing a pop-up banner is something that's on our to-do list. So there are always little things like that that come up that we're going to need some design help with. So we have an issue queue in the Backdrop CMS.org queue. There's a tag there as well for audience design, as well as stuff related to community outreach. And that's usually where we get things like business cards designed, or pop-up banners, or promotional materials, or stickers, or stuff like that. So that's all I have for today's official agenda. Is there anything else you guys thought about while we were going through that we should talk about today?
Yep, just to bring this matter out, I'm not sure, it touches the design bit as well. I was looking, while you were talking there, I was looking for an article that I remembered by Angela Byron, how our competitors are kicking Drupal's ass. I don't know, this turned out to be a DrupalCon Dublin 2016 session at CGI. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that.
I haven't seen it.
So this is basically why platforms like point-and-click platforms like Wix and Squarespace are beating us when it comes to, when I say us, I mean Drupal, when it comes to small sites, and why. So there's an initiative that was started a while ago, and it's called, just hold on a second, bear with me, Out of the Box Design, I think. Out of the Box Experience Initiative. And it's about, if I have things right, introducing a profile that actually, I'll just shoot you a link now. It's introducing a profile that actually, once Drupal gets installed, it has a full design of something that seems a food blog or something, with images and actual dummy content, which is not just lorem ipsum thing. I'm not sure if we want to discuss, I think it's an okay idea. I'm not sure if we want to discuss whether we can implement something like that or not.
I think, like, coming from the design perspective on that, now that I've created a couple of themes that have been publicly released, and I think Wes talked about this a year ago too when he was working on Basis, is that now that Backdrop has all these utilities where you can add classes in different places, it's pretty easy to write your theme to target these specific classes, and then to write documentation that says, like, if you want this to look like a recent news post, add the recent news class. And you can allow people to kind of construct a site that looks more finished just from using classes that you provide in your theme and dropping them into the interface in different places. And I think that it's going to be much easier for people to create one of these sort of finished product examples with more flexibility than you could get with some of those other systems, as long as those themes are really well documented. So in the last few weeks, I've created, I created a base theme for UC Berkeley where they had like a couple of different like color headings and stuff, where it had classes where you could drop in like what kind of blocks you wanted and how you wanted, what colors they wanted to be in the headings. And then I'm doing another one that is based on like an HTML template, where the people who wrote the template have already kind of written it in a way where it has various patterns that you can repeat, and those patterns are based on the classes. And so if you just kind of port those into Backdrop based on a class and say, add this class to your view or add this class to your block, it's pretty easy to make these patterns super recyclable. And I think that it would be great if we could kind of put that model more into practice in Backdrop's theme space. And I'm not sure we even need to bundle it with existing content. I think that could be optional, right? You could have a profile that came with a theme that lets you do it, or you could have a theme that you can just kind of stick it on your existing content. But I feel like having a finished example is valuable. And I don't know whether that should be a profile or like I don't know, some kind of script or something that could, so the reason I'm nervous about a profile is because those are hard to remove. Like if you don't want to uninstall it like a module. But if we have something in Backdrop space that's similar to a profile that you can turn on and off, where it could be like install with these 26 nodes and then remove these 26 nodes or whatever, I think it would be great if we could give people like a finished example, and then they can look at how that works and copy that to the parts of that they want to their own site. So I'm hopeful that we are going to have a lot more ability to make things that are recyclable in a way, or applicable to other situations in a way that we haven't really been in Drupal necessarily. I just think because the layout system gives everybody instant access to those blocks and the parts of their page that you want to put classes on. I don't know, like, I feel like because we're coming from Drupal, and in Drupal we already had like this shortage of quality themes, I feel like the thing that's going to set Backdrop apart, if we can figure out how to do it, is getting a couple of these example themes done where people can try them and apply classes in different places and see how it works. Because it's something that Wes mentioned when he built his base theme a year ago and sub-themes off the base theme. It's something that I'm starting to realize now. I think it's just going to take theme developers from Drupal a while to realize the utility that's there, because we're so used to doing everything specifically for the project we're working on, trying to kind of take a step back and say, how can we make these patterns that apply rather than making this thing look exactly how I want, before that's going to trickle into our contrib space. But I think that there's a lot of opportunity for that. We just need to kind of figure out how to make that work. One of the things I'm struggling with right now is a lot of these themes that come from, static HTML templates that people have already designed require licenses in order to use. And so I can't take my finished theme and put it on backdropcms.org, where I'm like, oh, this would be so useful for everyone who's on Backdrop, but they need to buy a license. And so I need to try and figure out if there's a way, and I'm going to try and go through this with this project, figure out if there's a way that we can release like an example portion of it that's like, here, this is what one page will look like for the full theme. Go to ThemeForest and buy a thing and then put in a code. And then maybe you can download the rest. Or I don't know how that's going to work, but I've got to talk to the original author of the theme and make sure it's okay with them and figure out how that's going to tie together. But I think if we can kind of cross-promote, like have it available in both places, but one only is an example and one is real, we might be able to figure that out. And if that ends up being a successful model, we could also do like build a little bit more of that integration a little tighter between like our theme listing and something like ThemeForest, where people already have that. Like if they could provide Backdrop versions of the themes as well as WordPress and Drupal, or if we could like have a Backdrop version that links to a specific like HTML template they need to purchase or something, I think that would be better. And one of the things I did want to mention, we just sent out this survey asking people what it was that they sort of were, what their blockers were for adoption to Backdrop. We have gotten a ton of responses. We've gotten more than 80 responses, which is a lot more than I thought we would get, which I think is great because that indicates that there's a lot more people interested in Backdrop than I had imagined. And the number one thing that people really want are more modules, themes, and layouts. And the number one complaint people have is that it's hard to find out if their modules, themes, and layouts are ready. And so I think it would be good. So what my kind of next priority is going forward is back to this issue we had even before we released Backdrop, to add like tags to modules, to expose those tags as a way to search on the modules page, to fix the way that searching works on backdropcms.org to make sure that we get better and more accurate results. And we have a type of content on backdropcms.org that's called a placeholder project for something that has been moved into core in Backdrop and isn't needed, that just contains documentation on if you're using token, you don't need to use token in Backdrop because it's in core. If you just upgrade your site, your tokens will be upgraded. And I think it would be good if our search results, when we're searching for modules that are available, also returned these placeholder items. So someone's searching for token, they're not going to go, oh, there's no token for Backdrop, I can't use it yet. They're going to find the thing that says, you don't need token for Backdrop because we already have it and this is what you do instead. And right now our search doesn't do that. So I think just trying to address some of these issues where making people know what we have available is going to be great. And then also for the theme stuff, making sure we can get screenshots in. And we talked about this before about how like we support one screenshot. We would like to be able to support multiple screenshots of multiple device sizes and have people be able to page through them in some kind of a slideshow where you can take a look at all different designs and stuff that are offered for any given theme. So I think trying to kind of fix, we've got some problems with how our module theme and layout selection work. I think if we can get those cleaned up, that'll help people in terms of adoption and understanding where we're at, like how much we do have already, as well as a better experience of the process. It's always been a little painful in Drupal land too. So
it's not only different devices. Some themes have different layout and design for their homepage and different. So a couple of screenshots are always required for like most of the themes.
Yeah, I would agree.
If I could get back to what Gregory was talking about, having a theme with content. A lot of times when I go to, in the sidebar, I did put a link to a site that looks completely finished. It was just a sample site. And I had downloaded the theme, and then it came with content as well. And many of them do that in other types of CMSs. And what that allows me to do, not being a front-end developer, is allows me to go through and basically backwards engineer what's going on. So I can, it's a learning process for me. I mean, I know enough to be dangerous. I know there's other people like me, where if I can go in and see how something was done, I can take my existing knowledge of Drupal and then pull it across into Backdrop and say, oh, okay, well, that makes sense. And it doesn't have to be a finished product that other people are going to use. It's just one that you can look at and say, okay, I get it. And then, uninstall it and reinstall the blank theme.
Yeah. I also think it might be valuable. Like, we have this sandbox system that'll let us like test every pull request by firing up a Backdrop site. If we could use that for every theme to fire up a sandbox with the theme active and have like a generic, admin plus given password, then anyone who wants to see how that theme works could log into that site and poke around. And there's even a project for Drupal, I forget what it's called, that will reset your entire database every 24 hours. So it'll go in and like wipe the database and reinstall from scratch and wipe the database and reinstall from scratch. And we could have that happen so that people could go and create content and build views or whatever it is they need. And then at midnight, it disappears and someone else can come do it the next day. And it creates like a safe sandbox land where people can see how this is supposed to work. And I think that if we had something like that that was like publicly accessible that you didn't have to have on your own site, that would be great. But we would also develop the tools for installing that sort of thing on our own site too. So if that's all open source, someone could download, like, here's all the config files that make that demo site. And then you can set it up on your local machine if you wanted that too, or you could import it into the site that you're building and then, reverse or re-engineer it that way. So I think there's definitely we've got a lot of options for how we want to handle that. And I think we can do a better job of that too.
Yeah, what Tom was saying, because I checked that link there, is like certain platforms like Weekend, Squarespace, and obviously now Drupal 8, I think the initiative is for 8, will be offering actual content. So if a non-technical person, like even when you try to sell the product, so to say, if they see the first installation, it's sort of like a complete site, and their business might be selling cars, but the theme that we provide might be restaurant or something like that, but they can relate to that. They can easily say, oh, all right, this is about food, but I sell cars. So in their head, they start replacing the images, the food images with car images, and the food text and the recipes with car specs. So they can instantly relate to that. Whereas what we have now is just a hero image and hello world with just a sentence, which is, you show it to a person that comes from seeing products like that, like Wix and Squarespace, and they immediately say, oh, that's very poor. They don't realize the features that Drupal and Backdrop offer. Now, I understand where you're coming from with profiles, and I agree with you that they're hard to remove. It's been a secret sort of like desire of mine to, at some point, even disabled to introduce Devel in core and see how Devel has the generate content thing that randomizes things.
Yeah.
I'm not sure how we can adapt it to, instead of random content, be able to generate like a full content. I don't know if we can, or if there has to be a separate module on its own that's called dummy content or something. That has some update hooks that actually, I don't know, create the nodes and then delete them as well if the user wants to reset the site.
I think that sounds kind of more like what I was envisioning, where I'm not sure it should be in core. I think like we could have a profile that includes that module. But I want it because right now I haven't run into this all the time where somebody's like, oh, I'm having problems with my Drupal site. Can you help me with it? And I look at it and I realize they started from some install profile that's completely not what they wanted. And they're now like fighting every step of the way because it's trying to create something that, you know, isn't what they're trying to create. And I'm like, oh, here's the problem. This thing is not meant to do what you want to do. In fact, it won't let you do what you want to do. But that's not Drupal's fault. This is the profile you chose. And I would love to find a way to make profiles for Backdrop a little bit more flexible. So if that means, you know, we put a module in a profile that lets you run an update hook that will install stuff, but then gives you a button to be like, go find all those nodes I created and delete them, that would be great. Or if it was, everything was optional where you can turn on and off, just like you can turn on and off modules, I think that would be great. I just feel like with the way our profiles work, I mean, they're installation profiles, they run all this stuff only at install time and they don't ever give you an out. And so trying to undo them takes a significant amount of understanding of how they work to be able to figure out like which modules you can disable in which order. And then even once you get them disabled, now your database is set up in a way, and which tables do you have to change back and how do you change them back, and where it just gets really messy. And I think that, you know, this is something that's been a pain point in Drupal for a while, and we need to solve it in Backdrop anyway. And I think like having install profiles is valuable for people who need that use case, but we need something else. I think we're calling them like recipes or something where you can say, oh, you know, here's a recipe for a basic blog site, and you can install it and you can be like, oh, that wasn't what I wanted, and turn it off and take it out. But it's something that would be more like a feature where it was a content type and a bunch of configuration and maybe a script that'll auto generate all that content for you. And I think that, you know, it's definitely possible to do that with the APIs we have now, you know, using something like devel generate in combination with config sync. I think we're kind of 90% of the way there. We just need to write the code that makes it into a recipe.
Yeah, that makes sense. I might just return to the queues and like create a ticket. I might create even a respective ticket to discuss about this called like titled the same way as the Drupal thing, the out-of-the-box experience.
Yep. That'd be
so we can iterate on that. Yeah.
I did have a question for you, Gregory. The features that you wrote for the Backdrop, still there? Okay. The Backdrop CMS site that I was going to make short videos out of. And some of these, like available now, upgrade from Drupal 7, boy, changes easily. They're just like a single sentence. Did you have something beyond that, or were those just starters? Do you remember? Goes back to March.
Which is this a ticket? Sorry, I can't remember now.
On backdropcms.org, the content type, the content we created for the home.
Yeah, I remember now. With the icons, the font icons.
Yeah, you created the content for each of them, and there's like a sentence on each, and that's about it. Is there more to it, or is that was just a start? Like security is a priority. I go in and it has like 2 sentences.
Yeah, so the idea there was we had this as a plain text, the whole thing, but the idea was that these things, like we would be adding more each time, and we might want to reorder them or something like that. So we converted that from a static text thing to a content type, with the idea of that yes, at some point in the future we might want to add more fields to them. Maybe like we have the short text now, but we maybe want to add a bigger like description text, and then if someone clicks on that, it takes them to the respective page. So that was the goal.
Okay. And what we're talking about is making a carousel with the text and then a short video with each. And I don't know if we want to extend these.
I think we do. I think the text that's there now just came from what was on the homepage, and a lot of that was stuff that I just made up. Gregory, you might have improved it a little bit when you created the content. But I would say, Tom, if you find anything in there that you think you can improve on, you want to add, you know, a little bullet list or something, that would be great.
Okay. Well, I just want to make sure I'm accurate when I choose the ones that let's say I want to say these are the top 5 that I want to do little 30-second videos on. Which are the top 5, and how can I ensure that, essentially what I would have to do is write a script and bounce it off somebody and say, this is what I think is accurate before I actually go through and record it. Because I have to do the captioning too. Are you guys familiar with the 508 compliance in the United States? Okay, whenever, and only because I'm going through this with schools, all the videos that we put up now have to have captions as well. So closed captions, so that, or subtitles, whatever you want to call it, so that people who are deaf can read those.
Yeah, I was aware that YouTube was auto-generating. Even if you didn't have captions, it auto-generates for you.
It does.
But it's horrible, I know.
Yeah, I went through.
It's trying to be a human, yeah.
Yeah, it works well if you're actually writing the content. So what I thought I would do before, I mean, it's really easy for me to sit in front of a microphone and click, click, click and say, there's your thing. But I think I would rather just do short scripts and say, I would want to bounce them off somebody, and I guess, Gregory, would you be somebody willing to read through it and make sure that what I'm saying is actually accurate to what Backdrop can do?
Sure, I can sort of like, you want a sort of like proofreading of the captions that you will write, the intended content, so to say.
Yes, yeah, and it's not so much for spelling, because they'll be spelled right, but looking at them for technical accuracy.
Yes, sure. So I can help with that. My weekends are a little bit better now. Sundays. Tom, you're in the US, right?
I am, yes. Eastern Standard.
So, we can even do short hangouts, like if it's faster, but because coordination is hard sometimes. I don't know. We'll find a way to coordinate. Okay. Like if you prepare the text, then shoot me an email. I think that's the best way, because usually I used to hang around Gitter regularly, but now I need to catch up with a lot of stuff. So then there's more people there, so it gets a bit, you might mention me there, but it might get lost in the history.
Okay, well, I'm talking at max 5 scripts right now. Each one of those, the script total time is going to be 30 seconds. So it's not a huge amount of proofreading, but it might be best, like you said, just to collaborate on Hangout. And that way you could have read through it. I'll email you, and then you can read through them ahead of time. We'll just schedule a Hangout, just talk.
And we can take the input from, we could use the input from other guys as well. So even a ticket, like, would qualify for such a thing. Just write it there, and people might have more ideas. So we'll have more people than me coordinating and improving.
Yeah, that's great.
Sounds good.
All right. Paul says that he's trying to fix his camera, and he'll be back to introduce the Atomium thing. So let's give him some time.
That's exciting. Yeah.
So I didn't have the chance. So he's from Evangelos, which is the WordPress person that was hanging out in Gitter. So he's from my hometown. He organizes there the WordPress meetups. He's very keen on, like, his constant complaint about Backdrop is you don't have enough themes, because he comes from a background where they take the WordPress core and they just throw a theme in there and just theme away.
Yeah.
So he says for something like Backdrop, because it already has the inherited complexity of Drupal, for someone to just get into it, to be attractive for them to get into it, there will have to be a lot of themes. And when he says a lot, he means like dozens, if not hundreds. So that's what he's expecting.
Looks like he totally does.
Hey.
Hello.
You fixed your camera.
You hear me?
Yes.
All good. Fine. Hello. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
I don't want to interrupt. Just please keep your discussion. I can talk later.
Oh no, we'd gotten to the point where we were done and we were waiting for you to come back. So it is all you. We were just talking about how there's a shortage of themes for Backdrop. It's definitely something that, based on our recent poll, we've heard from our community that people are waiting for more modules, themes, and layouts to be ready. And I personally would like to work on making more screenshots of themes available for people to view in a carousel where you could see different pages and different device sizes. So we know this is a pain point, and we thought that might transition nicely into your addition of a new theme for Contrib.
All right. So I will maybe introduce me and then explain a bit of a background with Atomium, and then we can decide further if you want to work with that tool or not. So I am working right now at the European Commission since 4 years, and I've been given the task to create a new theme for the European website maybe 6 or 7 months ago. And I am not a themer, I am not a front-end guy, I am more a back-end guy. I have a couple of modules in Drupal, and doing the theming stuff was not really my cup of tea, but hey, that's work, and I had to do it. And I noticed that there were plenty of stuff to do in Drupal 7 because the theming is really a mess. To be honest, there's a lot of stuff to do in there, and I've decided through the team that I've built to fix all these small issues actually. And in Drupal 7, you have 2 different ways to define a component HTML, to render HTML, either by a function, either by a template. And I've decided in Atomium to transform all of this and only use templates to render everything. The single thing is based on a template. It has a lot of advantages because you can have different template file suggestions. You can pre-process all the variables properly. It's really, really nice. And Atomium is adding a lot of goodies into this, and you can. There's plenty of good stuff now in Atomium. For example, the attributes handling and generation is based on a class. It's an object, and you can use as many attributes as you want, and you can add, remove them. You can do a lot of stuff with Atomium and attributes, and it's really, really easier for people developing a theme. So right now, Atomium is hosted on Drupal.org and on GitHub, and it's available on Backdrop, but only locally. I haven't pushed, wait, because I have an issue with my little cat jumping on me. So Atomium is available, but the branch for Backdrop is not yet online, but I have a successful working branch on my local, and I just can't wait for people to maybe test it if I put it online and let me know if you like it, what you think about it, and how we could just work together. Maybe I'm really open to any collaboration. So voila, that's it.
That sounds really great. So that was one of the changes we made in Drupal 8, was making sure that all of the theme markup was generated from template files instead of theme functions. And part of the reason we made that decision is because when new people come to Drupal, especially in Drupal 7, they don't know where the markup's coming from. Is it coming from a template file or a theme function? And some people are intimidated by theme functions. If they're not backend developers, getting into a function is a lot scarier than being inside a template file. So I think that's great. I would love to play with that theme, especially if you have a Backdrop version that's ready for more people to take a look at it. I would encourage that you put it into the Contrib group, but don't create a release, because it won't show up on backdropcms.org or in the software unless you have an official release on it. But that way we would get an issue queue where we could work on anything that came up. I'm personally super excited about it. I'd love to give it a try. So thank you for putting all your energy into doing that.
You're welcome. If you want, if you are interested into, I wrote an article that explains all the details. Here I explained in a couple of minutes, but here I explained all the things. I'm passing the links into the chat. So voila, that's a blog post explaining what I did in Atomium. Some stuff changed since I wrote this blog post. I need to update it. It's just that I didn't have the time to do it yet. But what we can do, just to start maybe, is I can push the branch somewhere and you can test it, or I can send it to you as an archive, because I don't know if I can I can push the branch online now, as it's really experimental and it's not very stable.
Okay. Do you have your own GitHub repository?
Yeah.
We could just use it there. If you want to push the branch there, I can take a look.
Okay. So then I will push the branch for, yeah, I think I will do that. I will just push a branch on the GitHub repository, and the branch will be probably a backdrop.
Okay, that sounds great.
I will do that in 5 minutes, and I will give you the link on the Gitter chat. And if you have time to test it, just let me know. If you enable the team debug in the parameters, you will have a lot of comment in the HTML sources, because as it's based on templates, there is plenty of comments coming up there. So you'll see the goodies that it can bring.
That's great.
Voilà. Sorry for the cats, but as soon as I'm speaking here, they're just arriving.
That's all right. There are people that watch these videos just for the cat. So
come on, allez. Ah. Voilà. So that's it.
Well, that's great. Thank you so much for sharing that. I can't wait to take a look at it. And also, I'll read your blog post, but if you're interested in writing a blog post specifically about the Backdrop version, we would love to have that on backdropcms.org.
Yes, but I will wait for your feedback, and then if the feedback is good, then if we continue to work with it, I will for sure write a blog post.
That would be great.
Alrighty, so I'm going to push the branch and ping you on the channel now.
Okay, thank you.
Good evening. Ciao, ciao.
Bye.
Ciao.
Is there anything anyone else wants to add?
No, I'm good. We haven't got meeting in a while. All right, I'll catch you there, guys.
All right, bye, everyone.
See ya.